There's a new documentary just started at the Tyneside Cinema called The Dream Palace, A People's History of the Tyneside Cinema. Look, Tyneside Cinema. And it's celebrating 80 years of, well, 81 years now, but 80 years of the Tyneside Cinema being a thing. If you've had the fortune of knowing me well enough, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the Tyneside Cinema. Just follow me on Twitter. I tweet them all the time, just asking them questions like, how long does this last? Can I do this? That's just me. My first ever Tyneside Cinema experience was in 2008. It was a week-long film course thing. I was like 12, so it was all people my age, and we made this kind of short film with the help of somebody there, and I forget what it was about now. No, I do. I remember now. It was something like Stuck in the TV, and we acted out all these scenes. I was one of the actors in it. I remember I fought hard for that role. I did have to fight somebody off for the role. That was good. That must exist somewhere. We made like fake tickets and everything. We made like little things online and print them off, and all the parents came and saw the film. Oh, I enjoyed that. It was good. So that was my first ever time going there, and I was 12. I don't think I saw a film there until 2013, and that was Wild Bill. So with Gateshead College, where I studied for a couple of years, it was great. It was some kind of BBFC event, so they showed us the film, and then we did like a little survey thing about why such and such things existed, and I think there was a talk from the BBFC, which was quite cool. And then I didn't pay to see a film there until 2014. It was just after my 18th birthday when I saw that they were the only cinema in the Northeast showing The Double, which is the brilliant Richard Ayoade film. Got the times wrong, was on the bus and looked at the times and said, oh, this is me and Ryan, who used to do the film show with. We've missed it. So I was like, we've come all this way, we can't go away empty-handed, we may as well go and see something. We ended up seeing this like strange ensemble comedy from this guy. What was his name again? Wes Anderson? Wes Anderson? It was this film here, the Grand Budapest Hotel. No, me neither. No, in all seriousness though, I didn't know who Wes Anderson was at that point. I didn't. And that's kind of strange now, because I love him. And I guess because the first time was in the Classic, which is like the main cinema, the one that's always been there, the one that goes back to the very beginning of the Tyneside's existence. And it's just magical. You've got the big red curtain that goes up, you've got that sort of Art Deco feel. And to this day, because I do keep a list, it's always good to keep a list of things. It'll always come in handy in the future. It's coming in handy now, so I can give you this figure. I've seen 161 films at the Tyneside. So the Dream Palace, it's the story of the Tyneside basically, but it's a people's history, so it's more than just a story about the building. It's kind of a real look at, a very close introspection of the people who pass through its doors, the film goers, the people who've made it what it is. The reason the Tyneside is so successful and the reason it's so popular is because they offer a thing that, you know, nobody else does, and that's true now, and it was true back then. Back in the day, there was no TV. They opened just before World War II started, so nobody, you know, got news like we do now. There was no 24-hour news channels, which is probably a good thing. So to get any kind of knowledge of what was going on, and to actually see the pictures, you'd need to go to the cinema. So the Tyneside opened as the News Theatre in 1937. Dixon Scott, who is Ridley Scott's great uncle, Ridley Scott being the director of such films as Alien, Blade Runner, and not most recently, but the most recent good one, The Martian. So there's a great story in the film of how we had this cinema where they would show the films and his family would all play the instruments. And that was in Jarrow, or Jarrah. So they opened in Newcastle as the News Theatre. It's still the longest standing news theatre to exist. All the rest of them are gone, and the Tyneside still actually shows newsreels on a morning if you go before the films all start, like 11:15 I think it is, I just checked. They still show like old newsreels, which is so cool. So the Dream Palace, well, it's the name first of all, Dream Palace, it is what it says. It's actually quite moving to see the kind of people who've been at the Tyneside and had their lives affected by it so much. You know, it is really more than just a cinema or just a building. It's got soul to it. It's more than just your average multiplex. It's a place that's steeped in history. You can almost feel the kinetic energy type thing. You can feel the people who've passed through it. It feels like it's been through a lot. There's some really emotional bits where, you know, it highlights particularly how important it was for the LGBT scene back in the day, back when it wasn't quite as culturally acceptable to be an LGBT person. But Newcastle and the Tyneside were kind of leading the way in some regards with their cinema selection choices, with the stuff that they put on, with the kind of events that they would allow people to congregate to. So it's these real people that make the Tyneside, and that's what makes this story so beautiful. It speaks very lovingly about cinema generally as well. In particular, there's a lot of time spent talking about the Odeon on Pilgrim Street, which I've got some vivid memories of, but they are very vivid. So I remember seeing 102 Dalmatians there. Great. Which is the one where the puppies kind of get revenge on Cruella de Vil, I think. It's when they like turn the tables. I don't know. But I do remember seeing that. It's a big, grand cinema. It's like really big and huge. And it was like special if you were there. You felt like you needed to wear like a suit just to feel like part of it. But I mean, it's a cinema, so you haven't got to do anything. You just turn up. But that closed in 2002. And if you're from Newcastle, you'll know it was there until last year. It was still standing desolate for 15 years, just gathering dust. So constantly, it was like this big reminder all the time that it closed. You'd walk past it to go to the Tyneside, you'd see it there and you'd think, oh, I used to like going there. I mean, I was only 6 when it closed. There'll be people who've been in the city forever who will, have had memories going way back than just 102 Dalmatians. So in that, it's a really like loving portrait of that. I sort of think the city, even though it wasn't doing anything, I just sort of, I liked seeing it, and I like going past it and seeing it. And now it isn't there. Now it's going to be some kind of like, it's like a big storage unit park. So it's like bars and restaurants and stuff, but in big shipping containers. Modern life, what is it? It makes a really interesting point about culture. If you went to the Tyneside back in those earlier days, then you would kind of subconsciously become cultural. And it seems like a sort of snobby thing, like, oh, well, I go to the Tyneside, I look at this kind of art, and I listen to this kind of music, but subconsciously the dots kind of connected that way. You were in a circle of people who were very like-minded to you. You could have conversations about these kind of things with, and people would come to the Tyneside from other parts of the world. If they had to live in Newcastle, it would be a big drawing point. Like, one of the first contributors in the film is a couple, and they speak about, they had to move to Newcastle for a job, and they were kind of like, a bit apprehensive. And then they saw the Tyneside was there, and they saw had this art house, foreign independent cinema, and they were suddenly like, yeah, I can make that work, I can live here. I like to think the Tyneside is always going to be good for that. It's always going to be a good draw, a good magnet for people to experience something that they won't get somewhere else. I do genuinely believe that independent cinema does brighten Newcastle as a city. Somebody else said this in the film. It does make the place just more complete. I think, and I said this to my friend Scott, independent cinema should be a right. It should be a rite of passage. There's so many places that don't have it, and probably suffer as a result. Small towns, they've got like a big, they've got like a cinema. I know there are some places that just have like a cinema that shows 2 films, and that gives you a certain pool of stuff to pick from. And if you go to the summer, let's say the choice is between an awful rom-com and Transformers 7 or whatever. But I think in these times especially, we need more to keep us sane, but also to expand our minds, to make us more culturally aware, to make us more accepting of what goes on in the world. I'd like to start a campaign of some kind. I was thinking of doing it as a project to try and think about how we can integrate independent and foreign cinema across the whole of the country, so it isn't just in these like sort of major cities. But you see a lot of people who say, oh well, we're not going to get a chance to see that because they live in cities that aren't Newcastle or Manchester or London or sort of certain parts of Scotland or major cities. I'd like to be in the position where everybody can see these films at an affordable price. They haven't got a journey too far for them. I don't see why that'd be too hard, and I think it would make life better. So there you go. I think it would. And I've got to say as well, the film is beautifully shot. There's lots of nice imagery of the cinema itself. Seeing the red curtain rise is always nice. And then getting a chance to go behind the scenes to the cinema now, seeing the projector set up there, when they play 35mm films, watching it being fed through, and watching the sprockets around the room as the reels fly around. That's nice. So if you're a cinema, like, techie geek kind of person, like I probably am, then that's nice. It's nice for that reason. And also, it's just nice to see Newcastle on the big screen. I mean, it's weird seeing where you are sat being depicted on the screen, but seeing Newcastle on the cinema screen is always nice. Like, Daniel Blake, just seeing, like, Theatre Royal in Grey Street and seeing a bit of Granger Street, it's just like, oh, that's why I like living here. Just because it's nice. No other reason. Just like Newcastle. So, the Dream Palace, I think if you like the Tyneside, then you've got to make an effort to go and see it. It is showing tonight, if this goes out on Tuesday, tonight at 6 o'clock. It's on Saturday at 5:30. It's on through next week, the week after. It's currently scheduled in until the end of March, but hopefully it stays on longer so everyone gets a chance to see it. The Dream Palace, People's History of the Tyneside Cinema, is showing now. Go and see it because it's great.